This is the first Tuesday of the month Waupaca City Council meeting.
Welcome to our regular scheduled City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2016, and I do call this meeting to order. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and after we say the pledge, I would ask that you all continue to stand just for a moment. We lost one of our good employees, Pete Anderson from the airport. He passed away yesterday morning, so we'd just like to take a moment of pause on that. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I know Henry's got some things that he wants to discuss about the airport, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the meeting as we go through it. So let's go with the clerk's open meeting statement. Sandy.
This meeting and all other meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And would you take roll, Sandy?
Brian Smith.
Here.
Steve Hackett.
Here.
Lori Chestnut.
Here.
Paul Hagan.
Here.
Alan Keeland.
Here.
Scott Perchatsky.
Here.
Dave Peterson.
Here.
Paul Mayo.
Here.
Chuck Whitman.
Here.
Jillian Peterson.
Here.
And Eric Olson.
Here.
10 present. We have a quorum.
Next, you have the consent agenda items. Are there any items that council or staff would like to see moved from the consent agenda, or we make one motion on all of those items and move them to the regular agenda? Anybody that would like to see any changes there? There are no additional handouts when it comes to the consent agenda, so we'd be just looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Keelan, second by, Dave Peterson, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Our regular agenda, Sandy, you have some handouts for us tonight?
Under number 9, new business, an addendum to the council packet was posted on Monday, February 28th, 2016 for the City Hall Library renovation project, award of Phase 1 work for painting. And under number 9, new business, letter E, a letter from Joyce Boyer was also distributed. And that's all.
Thank you, Sandy. I have not heard any request on moving any of the items around on the regular agenda, so with those two additions, we can go forward with approving the regular agenda. Maybe. Anybody want to make a motion?
Move for approval.
Second. Motion by Mayo, second by Olson, that we approve of the regular agenda with those two additional handouts. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Under non-agenda items and announcements, we have a time set aside for public input. If we have anybody in the audience that would like to discuss something that's not on our agenda tonight, please step up to the podium and give your name and address for the record. Limit your time to 3 minutes or less. Anybody that would like to give us public input?
I would like to say something, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Sure. Alan Keeland, 701 South Main Street, Waupaca. I hope that you've all had a chance to listen to WILW. I think it is an outstanding local community station, and if you haven't listened to it yet, you should take the time to tune into it at 96.3. I think Chris and Josh and the others are doing a great job on that.
Awesome.
Did you do the trivia contest? Did you do the trivia contest? No, I couldn't handle that.
Well, thank you, Ellen. Yeah, that was a good plug. Let's move on then to unfinished business. We have the ordinance, and this has to do with the 2030 comprehensive plan. This is the second reading. Brennan, you want to just give us a real brief one on that?
Sure. Item in your packet is to change the comprehensive plan for a piece of property located at 715 Hill Street. The applicant formerly zoned the property business and is looking to rezone the property back to residential so that they can utilize the property as a residential use on that property. There's two action items here, but the first one is to change the comprehensive plan first.
Thank you. And this is the second reading of that ordinance. As we said at the last meeting, the neighbors are in favor of this, and obviously the City Planning Commission did recommend this to council also. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve this ordinance change.
I move to approve ordinance 01-16.
And I'll second.
We have a motion by Keelan, second by Chestnut, that we approve of ordinance number 0116. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Waupaca year 2030 comprehensive plan. Any further discussion? If not, Sandy will call the roll.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Hagan, Chuck Whitman,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Jillian Peterson, Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Eric Olson, and Alan Keeland.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
Brennan, you want to touch on the next ordinance that we have?
So the next ordinance is the follow-up action for the local zoning district. Again, the property is currently zoned B3, and the applicant is requesting to zone it to R1 single family to allow the use of a single family residence on that property.
Okay. Any questions there? Comments? Again, this is our second reading, so we can go ahead and approve this if you're okay. Motion by Olson, second by Jillian Peterson, that we approve the ordinance number 0216, an ordinance amending section 17.201, parent 2 of the chapter 17 of the municipal code of the City of Waupaca entitled Amendments to District Maps. Any discussion? That's a lot of P's to say when you got Bell's palsy, guys. We do that, all right? Any other discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Jillian Peterson, Eric Olson, Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Chuck Whitman,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Paul Hagan, and Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, and we got one more ordinance, Brennan.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 3-16 is in regards to the allowing chickens to be raised in R1 and R2 districts. As you know, this is the second reading. My department has done some extensive research of other communities throughout Wisconsin, similar in size, that regulate or allowing chickens on properties. This was becoming a continued issue since our ordinance does not permit chickens within the residential area. My intern / code enforcement officer was the one that prepared this underneath my supervision, and the Planning Commission did make a recommendation to council with the attached ordinance for consideration.
Okay, so again, this is the second reading of that ordinance. Do we have any comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll ask a question about it, if I can.
Who are you directing this at,
Which
Brennan?
It's at under 3, well, it's one where it's 3, not 3K, but 3L. No enclosure in the front or side yard.
Correct.
So I'm just thinking in my neighborhood, a resident probably might have chickens with a house facing that way. And the other, he's right on the corner, so the abutting house is this way. So his backyard would be the side yard of this guy here. So, and I understand there's a 25-foot thing, but
On
how would you handle it? Is there any,
On corner properties, if you have road frontage, that would be your front yard, so it cannot project because you have two front yards. They cannot project forward of your house on either side of the street. As long as it's on the side or rear of his property, you could have chickens, yes. As long as it does not project forward of the property and is within the street area between any portion of the street and the house.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Anybody have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 03-16.
A motion by Keelan, second by Hagan, that we approve of ordinance number 0316. This is a ordinance amending chapter 17 of the City of Waupaca zoning ordinance as it deals with chickens. Any discussion?
For those people who currently have chickens, is there going to be some sort of education process as to?
Yep, there will be a grace period that all properties that do have them need to be brought into conformance by the end of this year. We will be doing a public outreach and a little advertisement in the newspaper and everything else to make people aware of this new ordinance and regulations that are in place. Yes.
Steve, go ahead.
What about people who already have roosters?
As of passing this ordinance, they have rooster. They will receive a letter if there is that, and if they do not comply, will receive a citation from my department.
I'll get you an address.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Bonnie, did you, usually we don't do this, but I know you're here for this specific reason. Did you have any comments you wanted to make before we voted on this? If you could just stand at the podium, because we're using, we're on TV tonight. We want to make sure we'd be able to pick you up. Just give your name and address, please, Bonnie.
Shortest route. Bonnie Miller, I'm at 306 East Lake Street. And I apologize, I thought there were going to be 3 readings of this, so I didn't prepare properly. But I do have a question. I wondered about people who already have more than 5 chickens.
I think
If there's some grandfathering. I know there was discussion at the first reading, but I didn't hear how that came out.
Okay. Brennan, you want to explain that again, please?
There is no grandfathering of anybody that has more than 5 chickens in the city. As our code and ordinances currently state, they're prohibited unless they are within the egg district. So anybody that has chickens on the property right now are actually in violation of the zoning ordinances to date.
Okay.
So by the end of this year, all properties will need to be brought into conformance of 5 or less on the property.
So they'll have till the end of the year to reduce it to 5 or less? Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I'm wondering if you would consider changing that and allowing a grandfathering. Just for the hens, not for the roosters. I understand the ordinance about the rooster.
We have done extensive work in preparing this ordinance and looking at other municipalities, and all the municipalities that we've looked at have not allowed more than 5 on the property. I think that's for a residential area, especially the smaller lot properties that are out there. I think 5 is suitable for the property. Anything over that, I think individuals should maybe look at other properties that can house more than 5 chickens on the property.
Okay.
This is for personal use and not for, commercial operations.
Oh, sure. But if you've already got, like I already have 15 chickens and they're old, and it's a little hard to get rid of an old chicken unless you, send them to the chopping block, which I don't really want to do. I'm kind of attached to them. So, I guess that would put me in a very difficult position. Also, I do have a very deep lot. There's a lot of room there. So maybe there's some circumstance where that could be allowed.
My recommendation from staff stands.
Did you have a question?
Yeah. I was just going to say, how old are they? Is there a chance they can drive by the end of the year?
There's always a chance, yeah. About a third of them are 8 years old, so they're really quite old for chickens. And I'm not sure, they're just happy, I guess. And then another third of them are about 5 years old. And then another 5 are 2 years old. So, and
Attorney Hart, you wanted to make a comment?
To have something, grandfathered, it would presuppose that the use was legal at the time the ordinance was passed. And as Brennan had stated, almost any chicken in a residential area is illegal, and it cannot be grandfathered, just by virtue of what that means. It would have to be a legal activity, and what Bonnie Miller has has not been sanctioned by any stretch of the imagination under our ordinances as they currently stand. So she would have to comply with what Brennan is talking about by the end of the year.
So what you're saying then too is that if we were to allow her to continue, the only way we could do that is to extend the time from the end of the year to any time past that if we felt that that was, if we wanted to grant her a request.
And the only other comment is, I assume that when she started raising chickens on her property, she knew it was illegal.
oh no,
She should have known it was illegal just by virtue of the fact that she's in a residential neighborhood and she's got a bunch of animals that aren't licensed, cats and dogs. And given the fact that it was illegal, whether she understood that or not, does not give her an excuse to continue something that was illegal and would continue to be illegal under this ordinance.
Just for the record, it was certainly my understanding that chickens were allowed, and there was no, I came to the city council meeting where it was discussed. So I didn't in any way think that I was doing something that was illegal.
I'm sure you didn't, Bonnie. I think everybody is sympathetic to where you're at.
Thank you.
But you understand that
I do understand that, yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten to a point where we've had a discussion, not only at this level, but we've had citizens that have been concerned about this enough that we felt that we needed to do something about it.
I understand that, yes.
Yeah, and you made your request, and I don't know, anybody have any comments on that request? We have a motion and a second that the ordinance stands as it was in your packet, unless we would like to make any amendments to that.
I did have one other thought, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
I wondered if it might not be more efficient to have, or just beneficial at all, to have some kind of a class for people who are interested in raising chickens. Because what I know happens in some other cities is that if people just look at the ordinance for direction, they don't necessarily understand everything that's involved with taking care of chickens, and then when they get them, they realize that they don't want them, and they may just set them free. And I've had chickens thrown in my yard from people that know I have chickens and figured I could take care of them.
Actually, I think that's a good idea, Bonnie, and we might take you up on that. We have our local access channel. We have the library that certainly would help us. So, yeah, we'll make sure that we get in contact with you. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Is that it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Bonnie. Anybody else have any other discussion? If not, Sandy will call the roll.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut. Aye. Eric Olson. Scott Prochatsky.
Aye.
Jillian Peterson. Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Chuck Whitman,
No.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
and Alan Keeland.
Aye.
9 ayes, 1 no, motion carried.
Okay, moving on then to new business, we have a presentation and an award of contracts for our downtown vision and redevelopment plan and retail market analysis. Brennan, you want to get us going on this?
Yep, thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'll keep my overview brief. We brought this forward to the council a couple weeks ago, just kind of giving the overall framework of this project moving forward. We do have representatives here from RDG Planning and Design this evening, along with SEH consultants and Gruen associates as well. If there are any questions, they will be doing a little presentation for you. But as you know, the memo is outlining and the process moving forward. We're looking to award 3 contracts this evening to the consultants. 2 of them that are directly associated with the Downtown Vision and Redevelopment Plan, and that would be the Downtown Vision and Redevelopment Plan with RDG Planning and Design at a cost of $134,435, and then we also have a topographic engineering services agreement with SEH in the amount of $17,500. In the upper part of my memo, I talk about a total project budget about $152,000, and then a $15,000 contingency. Just because of the scope of work that is being prepared by SEH and RDG, we had to split out the topographic survey and have that directly contracted with the city. But if you add those 2 numbers up, it's just under $152,000. And that funding is going to be through a multiple of sources, including our sewer and water account. We have a grant through WDC along with the Community Development Block Grant. And then we are seeking to add $100,000 to our borrow with the State Trust Fund this year to fund the remaining portion of the work. And then our market study, which is at a cost of $25,000, is going to be funded through the city's existing tax increment districts for the project. With that, I will let the team make their presentation to council, and then I guess open it up for any questions afterwards.
Sure. Awesome.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Common Council, I'm Marty Schukert of RDG Planning and Design, and we are thrilled to be here this evening. It feels like morning to me. This evening to talk to you about the project, about briefly who we are and what we hope to do with you should we have the privilege of moving forward with you on this project, when it will be done, how we're going to do it with you. We think that this is a tremendously exciting project, a tremendously exciting opportunity, and are particularly enthusiastic about being here with you tonight, and also enthusiastic about the team that is assembled here to execute the project with you. We have a large number of people who will be working on the project, but most of the principal people who will be working with you on the consulting team are here tonight. Corey Scott of RDG, who will be the day-to-day project manager, me, who will be the principal planner and urban designer, Randy Sanford of SEH, who will lead the engineering aspects of the project, as well as the negotiation and discussion with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation on the STP project, and Aaron Gruen of Gruen Plus Associates, who will be leading the market study and market research portions of the project. Together, our 3 firms have vast experience in the Midwest and in all parts of the country on downtown planning, development, specific physical infrastructure, streetscape, and market analysis. So we're excited to be here, excited about the experiences that we bring to this project, and looking forward to a very rewarding journey with you as we develop this plan and execute it toward implementation. I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of who we are and what we think about when we're thinking about a downtown plan, and wanted to illustrate that with a couple of quotations from people, one of whom was a mentor of mine, Alex Garvin, who was the person who was in charge of the plan in New York City to reconstruct the World Trade Center site and was a professor of mine in college, which gives you some idea of how old he is. Alex in The American City, What Works, What Doesn't, which is really one of the best books on planning, on practical planning ever written, says that successful planning is public action that generates a sustained and widespread private market reaction, which improves the quality of life in the affected community. Our work is all about generating positive outcomes. And a lot of the work involved in a downtown plan is identifying those investments and actions in the private realm that will generate the greatest private market response that is a desirable response, the most reinvestment, the most business. But it's not just all about money. It's about the character and the feel of a district. And I came across this quotation a few years ago from a theoretical physicist named Jeffrey Webb, who's developing field equations to describe city interaction. And he has one of the best descriptions of what good city planning is. Good city planning's objective is to maximize interaction and minimize distress. And that really, in a lot of ways, says it. That of creating a positive environment that is comfortable to be in, that minimizes conflict and distress, and that understands the concept of community, and certainly the role of a city center and a downtown in building that level of community. We've been to Waupaca twice. One was an advance trip as we were preparing our proposal for the project. The other related to the interview itself, but we came a little bit early, had a chance to do some shopping, to talk to businesses, to get an idea of the feel of the district. And we're just exceedingly excited about the quality of downtown Waupaca. We also recognize that we're talking about not just a Main Street environment, but a surrounding district as well, and even connections to other retail and commercial districts. So it is a project as well that looks at a variety of factors, from infrastructure to marketing to economics to understanding the process of developing projects to parking to the relationship of the river to downtown. The downtown plan element of the process will investigate all of these things and I think notably show how they relate one to another into an overall comprehensive program that helps take a good city center and make it a great city center. This process starts with, in fact, engaging the community, establishing a schedule, and moving forward in a concerted way to complete the plan. Corey's going to talk a little bit about that.
Overall, the entire project is going to be wrapped up by December. The best way that I can say to describe the process is the first couple months is about where are we at now. Following months would be where do we want to go, and then the months leading towards getting to December, how do we get there? Here in this, we have a detailed scope of services, so a lot of it is listening at the beginning, understanding what are the issues, and so by June, which we would come back for a whole week, we're looking at June 20th through the 24th of how do we take all these issues and concerns and articulate them in design. Marty will show you some graphics as far as what that looks like. So we, again, the process, awareness. The next couple months we were doing awareness campaign, making sure project is, people are aware of it. They know when meetings are happening. They know when to get involved. And June is kind of the big event where we want people to really participate, and perfect timing when we have warmer weather and there's a lot of activity along the street. Again, the vision and the ownership. We want to start the project off, and this will be in April. It'll be a kickoff event where people will get to learn a little bit more about the process, how to get involved, start sharing ideas, start to understand what are some of the challenges and opportunities that not are just along Main Street, but for the entire downtown, and for the community. Number of stakeholders discussions. This is very important. And actually, Brennan and I have started putting a list of a lot of people together as far as contact information, who we need to talk to during this process. And we hope to have your input in this too. So who needs to be part of this process so that we can understand what are some of the issues and concerns and their vision for the community. And we also, not everybody wants to come to a meeting. We go out to them. We go to businesses, have coffee with people, one-on-one discussions. If we need to, we would love to work with your students to do an event where they learn about community design and feel how they can be part of the future of Waupaca. We did this in Shenandoah, Iowa, where some students even designed tiles that would be part of the streetscape and can go back into the community and see with their family what they've been able to do for their own community. Going to the people, this is very important. So we will have a lot of on-site events, monthly activities. We'll be here every month, and a number of different groups that we will continue to connect with, particularly if we start struggling with people coming out to meetings. We've just got a lot of things in our toolkit to start pulling people into the process. There's even little things that don't require a lot of work, tweet boxes, right? This can be right out City Hall, and people can start submitting their ideas as far as what they'd like to see the future of Waupaca. And we can get into the details of the street, or we can get into new projects. Not everybody wants to go to meetings, so we have a lot of online activities. SurveyMonkey, we're in fact going to be starting a merchant survey here in the next month. And so we will begin to figure out who's actually shopping in the businesses, where they're from, but that'll be going on throughout the entire project. But a number of different means of just going out there and getting people to participate either from work, from their pajamas when they're at home. So there's a lot of opportunities that we like to open it up to people. So all of these, they help us understand what are some patterns going on in the community that we must address once we start getting into the design studio. And we pull in a number of demographic information, so quantitative and qualitative information, to start defining a program of what this plan needs to have.
Doing that involves a close examination of what's on the ground and how it all works together. So something that we feel is very important is understanding the character of the district, how people use it and move through it, and be able to assemble that kind of information, as well as looking at the existing character of uses that exist at the connection of the center of town to other parts of the community as well. But a very important element of this project is really the integration of markets and economics into the development and design and planning of downtown. This is, our firm and Aaron's firm have worked closely in this area on a number of projects, and we think that the idea of market-based downtown planning, of looking at the reality of markets and the potentials that we have in our primary, secondary, and tertiary markets, the local market, the area in a larger trade zone around it, and even a larger catchment area that involves tourism and seasonal visitation. We do research to be able to quantify all those markets, produce lots of numbers and potential that gives us an idea of what the economic impact of different elements of the project are, and then use all of those things to define a program. Using the stakeholder discussions, the quantitative and qualitative data to establish, in a way, a program for the downtown plan. Whenever we do a building, we define a program of spaces and requirements and relationships. Similarly, when we do a plan, we follow the same sort of concept. This program then feeds into the development of the plan itself. And in a way, we are looking in Waupaca at two separate but very closely related concepts. One being the more general plan that looks strategically at the program for development. The other, a more specific plan that looks at Main Street itself and looks at the streetscape and develops a 30% development and design set for that streetscape. Critical to that project, and Corey hinted at this, is our public design studios. We feel that it's very important to do the majority of our conceptual work in Waupaca on site with the participation of the downtown community and of the broader community as well. So our joy is really to get people involved in developing and critiquing ideas and really interacting with us in the development of the overall program. When we take that kind of conceptualization and relate it to markets, we get buildable and in fact executed results, as in this case of a project. There was a similar kind of plan and scope in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, that started with a concept, related market realities to that, and wound up producing a project that was really quite literally built and opened up at 100% occupancy, and has really been very important in revitalizing that downtown. As we move toward the specifics of streetscape, we also look at the different options and illustrate those options as we look at the Main Street environment itself and all aspects of that. That then leads to looking at implementation, at the possibilities of individual projects, and in fact even looking at individual pro formas for projects to demonstrate how different kinds of development will work from a commercial or residential or office perspective. Finally, we end that process and the plan part of the process with very public and interactive open houses where we spend hours talking with people, reviewing ideas, and really developing ownership of the planning concept. The result, again, is a project that will be, in fact, executed and will move forward. And that execution involves moving those concepts as they're accepted forward through the first stage of construction documents, the 30% design set, and on a larger scale, looking at the techniques and the reality of executing a project. Park Rapids, Minnesota is a project not unlike Waupaca, large seasonal population, a relationship to a river, a similarly sized Main Street. And Corey's going to talk a bit about the results in Park Rapids.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite projects, and Waupaca definitely reminds me. It's got a population of about 3,700 people, influx population of about 15,000 during the summer. Downtown was struggling. Didn't know whether or not it was going to be on a complete state of decline or if it was going to become something completely transformed. In 2006, we started working with them. We continue to work with them. In fact, had a phone call with them earlier today. But they wanted to do a downtown plan that really looked at the 3 blocks in the core area. And so that if you can see that. So we started to think, okay, right now we're at the 3 blocks, but really we have to think of it as a neighborhood, a district, and what's the relationship to all the other commercial districts, because all of them, it's part of a system. And so we expanded that scope and looked at, truthfully, the entire community, but gotten a little bit more detailed here into this focused area. One of the things that they really wanted to do as their first project is look at their Main Street or Main Avenue and to redevelop that. They had Center Street parking. They were very sensitive about that going away, and certainly we had a lot of people that came out to meetings because they were concerned that that was going to go away. But it became an opportunity where we were able to celebrate that as part of the design. So in 2006, again, this is a community with a lot of limited resources, and they were able to build that project and see a complete transformation of their downtown. It's now a must-go-to destination near the Mississippi headwaters. Lots of new restaurants, new retail. It has completely revived that entire community. And so since that project has been completed, which was somewhat stressful during the construction phase, it has opened, like I said, many new businesses, and they continue to see downtown growing beyond just a street. It becomes an entire district where people, again, want to go out and to explore other places, such as a brand new urban grocery store that has developed on the fringe. We're now working with them, and as far as expanding the perception of downtown, we started off with those 3 blocks. We said we need to think further than that. We looked at an entire district, and now they're seeing their downtown as even a broader area and seeing how the relationship of those neighborhoods feed into downtown. Very exciting project. It's one of the reasons why I got into planning. I definitely, when I first came here, you reminded me of that community and so many others that we have worked with, and you had that potential. So we're extremely excited to be here. We definitely look forward to starting the project tomorrow.
And one thing that I think the supermarket here demonstrates is that we are ultimately committed to you. This was such an important thing to get done in Park Rapids, and there's a block to it, and that is they couldn't get enough parking on the site. So we did, just as on a volunteer basis, a site plan that used the land that was available more efficiently, that allowed their buying cooperative to approve the project, that then allowed the supermarket to get built. And the supermarket is really credited by many of the people on Main Street, and it's off Main Street, as being a key to the revitalization of that district and its importance as a local area. Did we get paid for it? No, we didn't. We got paid for it. We got paid for it because the district was successful. Ultimately, your success is our success, and I think one thing that you'll see as we become friends and co-workers and partners is that level of commitment and bonding that is both professional and emotional. So we really feel in our hearts that Waupaca is that kind of community. That's why we are so excited about having the chance to work here, and are really looking forward, hopefully, to your approving these contracts and to a very close working relationship with you, with our partners on the consulting team, and with the entire community toward taking advantage of this opportunity to create a wonderful city center in Waupaca. Thanks. We would be glad to answer any questions that you might have, and also are thankful and grateful to the selection committee for recommending our team to you. So anything we can help with, we would be happy to answer.
Anybody have any questions or comments they would like to make at this time?
How long has your firm been around, and how many projects have you completed?
We are in our firm is in our 50th year of existence. Basically, RDG is a merger of two previous firms that both started in 1965. So we're actually celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. We in our firm have done something on the order of 80 downtown projects, from Wyoming to Wisconsin, from Oklahoma to North Dakota. Communities like Mason City, Williston, De Pere, Bemidji in Minnesota, as far west as Rawlins, Wyoming, a variety of SEH has also done a number of downtown projects. Randy, I don't know if you can.
Yeah,
Yep.
last year celebrated 85 years.
Yeah. So we've and GG plus A.
I feel like the baby.
Yeah.
Our firm on Valentine's Day celebrated the 46th year of existence. And I should tell you, they grew and grew and grew. And the first two are my parents, still working. They're the founders. Some days they think on the plus, other days maybe not. But we've been working 46 years. I've been with the firm for over 25 years. And we've probably done many downtown plans. I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess, but throughout Wisconsin, Illinois, and the Midwest, but also places like, if you ever get to leave, Nicole, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Naples, Florida are two more exotic places. So we're not as old as these folks, but we've also had a lot of continuity. The people with my last name have done over 1,500 projects where we did the work as opposed to large amounts of staff doing the work.
Thank you.
Marty, you made a comment in the interview process that stuck with me, and I'm not going to get it right, but I thought you might touch on it when you said philosophy. You said something like it was unethical or something to develop a plan and have that thing sit up.
Yeah.
What did you say? That
Yeah.
was pretty...
Yeah, that it's irresponsible planning to propose things that can't be implemented.
Okay.
That it's interesting. A good deal. The first part of my career was on your side of the aisle as a public sector planner, and in fact, as planning director for the city of Omaha during the 1980s. And one thing that I grew very impatient with, and we still see sometimes, are plans that don't make sense, that may provide compelling images or beautiful ideas, but don't make economic sense. And all they do is raise expectations and then drop those expectations when they can't actually be done. So that's why we believe that and I like to use the term realistic dreaming, a realistic vision, that we know we can't do everything. We know that everything can't be done at once, that there's a strategic element to it, and that we have to live within the opportunities that are open to us. But the creativity is in taking those opportunities and using them to the best advantage, and increasing the probability that we'll be able to succeed to our maximum potential. And again, it's interesting that over my career I've seen plans that had building footprints that had nothing to do with what developers actually build, or concepts for buildings or structures or spaces that didn't take into account little issues like having enough parking to accommodate the proposed uses. When you forget about all the different elements of a downtown, of a city center, of the relationship of that center to the community, and produce something that is dreamy but not real, that isn't responsible. That's not what we ought. That is not what we ought to be doing. And in fact, the art of planning is to maximize the possible.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, Brennan, lead us down your path here of how you want to see this.
Well, it's on your agenda this evening. I do want to say that John Hart has reviewed all 3 contracts that are in your packet for this evening and has approved all 3 of them. So the council can make one motion this evening if they'd like to approve all 3 contracts. Or they can take them individually. It's up to you, Mayor.
Kathy, let me ask you too. Are we looking, obviously we need to fund part of this at $100,000 worth, and the recommendation that Brennan has said is coming from the state trust fund. Is that something that we need to make as a separate motion here, or if we agree to these? I'm not sure where the comfort level is on the council as far as where they want to get that money from if they agree to that.
Well, if they do agree to it, I can tell you that, again, there's only 2 funding mechanisms that are available. And one is to use fund balance from the general operating budget, which is one of my recommendations. And the other one is to increase the state trust fund loan to $500,000 and make it the caveat that we, fit it in so that there is a 6-year borrow if you wanted to do that, to make sure that there isn't an increase in the tax levy for debt service, and have it fit in within the debt service schedule. That would be the other caveat that I would do. And I can, under the state trust fund loan, I can manipulate the principal balance paid every year so that we can go out. The increase rate right now for a 6-year note or the state trust fund loan is 3%. It's 2.5 if it's 3 to 5 years. The 0.5% on 500,000 isn't that much. So I could easily go out and have it do a 6-year borrow, and then you wouldn't see that higher of an impact on the debt service.
Mayor, I do want to follow up, and the reason why, the additional funding is needed. We have about $67,000 in the bank right now from grants and existing allocation of funds that the city put towards this. If everyone's aware, we utilize about $25,000 out of a borrow already to pay for the parking study that will be completed here in the next couple months. I had always estimated that the planning side of this was going to be around $80,000 to $100,000. The increased cost that we're seeing here is due mostly in part to the 30% design plans that we are also funding at this time. It is a critical piece in working through the process and going through the interviewing process that we do engage an engineer on board now so that we can get some more accurate cost estimates as we proceed down this road of reconstruction of Main Street. So that is a considerable amount of the funding. They are also going to be interacting and engaging with the DOT and be our advocate at the end of the day. To hopefully maybe get some design exceptions down the road if that is warranted or required through this planning phase. SEH has extensive work in that area, and it's one of the reasons why the design team and interview panel recommended SEH as the engineer for this project. And then also, we are seeking to carry about a $15,000 contingency. When we did the RFPs, we did get a number for conducting some basement surveys. Whether that work is done now or down the road, we are going to need some potential analysis for it. In working with Justin and his department, they are going to do the initial assessments of some of the basements because we need to know where old coal shafts are, what the utilities look like coming into the building's foundations. We may need to engage SEH or a third party, a structural consultant down the road to do some further analysis on some of the basements as we proceed down the road on this project. So that's why we're seeking to carry a little contingency fund in this project as well.
Brennan, remind me again what the committee consisted of. What individuals?
The interview panel consists of myself, Justin Behrens, Henry Veliker, Lindsay Chemnitz, Eric Olson, Terry Schultz, and Eric Fall from East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. And we have had, although they weren't able to be part of the project, and Lita Burr, who is our local representative, our community accountant manager for WDC, has had a vested interest in our community and has supported us on a couple different projects, has also approved, I guess, the recommendation of the consultants moving forward.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kathy. I'm sorry.
I think it would be for a motion, if you were to approve these, would be to right away just tell me where you plan to fund those contracts with.
Okay. But your recommendation is to take it from the state trust fund.
Right. The money that was put aside for contingency is for emergencies in operations. This is a capital project. So the way it's going to be funded, maybe in the future, this may be one of those where hopefully in 2018-19 we are on a good fiscal platform to go out to the market and be able to redo this part of the bond and pay it off with no penalty under the state trust fund loan. So I think this it's nice to have the money paid up in front, especially when you're signing these contracts, because as the treasurer, I have to tell them that there's money available to pay them.
As Kathy mentioned, this is just the start of a long journey that we're about to embark on here. I know that there's been some comments out in the community that the city or the council has already made decisions, and by no means have we done any of that. This is just the start, and we have multiple years of planning to go at the end of the day.
Okay. I know it's a lot that you've listened to tonight and so on, but again, if there's no other questions or comments, as Kathy and Brennan have both recommended, we could go ahead and approve these contracts tonight if you want to. And I think within your motion, if you would just, if you decide to, that you would agree that the additional funds needed would have to come from a borrow from the state trust fund of $100,000.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve all three contracts and increase the borrow from the state trust fund to $500,000 at a 6-year amortization.
Second.
A motion by Mayo and a second by Keelan that we approve of the three contracts for the downtown vision and redevelopment plan with RDG Planning and Design for the amount of, these amounts are accurate, I'm assuming, that are in your memo.
Yes.
$134,435. The topographic engineering services with Short Elliott Hendrickson Incorporated, or SEH, the amount of $17,500, and then the retail market analysis and strategic action development plan with Grun and Associates for an amount of $25,000. Where we already have $67,500, so we're looking at borrowing an additional $100,000 from the state trust fund. And what did you say right at the end?
It be paid back over 6 years.
Okay, and be paid back over 6 years. Your motion and the second discussion.
I will comment that this extra 100,000 we weren't expecting comes as a little bit of a shock, and you kind of wonder, we start here, now we're going to a much bigger version. 4 years from now when we actually start doing the project, I'm a little fearful of how much extra that could go.
Dave,
but I was really happy with the response to Henry's question and the response from the gentleman. So we're going to try to do it right. I think we do have to do it right from the start. And they saying that they're going to try to keep it within the bounds of what we can handle is very important. So I'm going to agree with it.
Okay. Thanks. Scott, go ahead.
Brennan, we had a lot of meetings with the downtown visioning committees. Will they be utilizing any of those notes and things when we hand this project to them?
Yeah, I will let Corey or Marty kind of, because that was one of the questions that the interview panel asked about. So I'll let Corey or Marty answer that question in a little bit more detail.
Just as an example, Cedar Rapids, Iowa is a community that we did work for, and they had 25 previous plans that were done. And so our job is to take all those previous projects and build off of them, and then also confirm everything that was done in those previous studies. And so, yes, the answer is we'll be building off of that work.
Just to touch real quickly on what Dave Peterson said too, is that, Brennan, you anticipated the cost of this. We did not include it in our budget for 2016. Can you just explain why it didn't?
Well, again, we were more focusing on the planning phase of it, where I looked at the $80,000 to $100,000. That's what we were originally looking at. But as we got into this process more, and we issued the RFPs, it was identified through the review panel and then the interviews that we really needed to get going on this engineering aspect of it as well, and that's why we've included the 30% design plans as a start. To answer Dave's question, I look at the $100,000 as part of the overall engineering cost at the end of the day. We're just paying for it more up front because of the synergy that this creates, and honestly I think there's probably going to be less money spent at the end of the day because you do have two teams working together at the same time instead of separately. But if you look at a typical engineering project, and I'm just throwing out rough numbers here, and I've spoken to Justin, if you're looking at a $3 to $3.5 million project, you're looking usually at about 10 or 15% of that as design costs. So $100,000 that we're utilizing right now is really a portion of final engineering costs long term that we're going to have at the end of the day.
Good. Any other discussion? We do have the motion and the second on the floor. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll have Sandy call the roll for us.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Jillian Peterson, Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Chuck Whitman,
Aye.
and Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
Good luck. We're looking forward to working with you guys. Thanks a lot. Okay, let's move on then. We have the next one has been tabled. I think you got that, an email from Brennan sometime today if you didn't get a check.
Mayor, I did not send that out, so I only sent it to Henry, Sandy,
Oh,
and
okay.
you.
You want to just explain what's going on with the next one then?
Yep. So staff is requesting, at the request of the applicant, to actually table this item this evening, and it's actually going to be going back to the Planning Commission next week for consideration. There are some conflicts that we still need to be resolved. There were some challenges at the last Planning Commission. The Planning Commission had sent it up to the council, but my recommendation to the council this evening was to table it and send it back to Planning Commission. Since then, the applicant has met with his attorney, and we are going to meet with him on Monday and bring this item back to Planning Commission to get a formal recommendation from the Planning Commission prior to having this item brought back in front of council.
All right. Thanks, Brennan. So, Planning Commission members, you will see this at our next week's meeting, which is on Wednesday, March 9th. So, as Brennan had said, this is tabled till our probably our next council meeting.
Do we have to take an action to table it, since it's on the agenda?
You can if you want. That'd be great.
I think I'd move to table it and send it back to City Plan Commission.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Hackett, that we table this request for a special use permit for Courtside LLC and send it back to City Planning Commission at their meeting on March 9th, at their regular meeting on March 9th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Motion carried. Next, we have the approval of the City Emergency Response Plan, or the ERP. Paul, I guess, I don't see Steve here, so I guess you're the one.
I guess it's me. This is pretty routine. It's done every year, I believe, and the modifications this year are fairly minor. Our examples would be changes in the committee members or changes in phone numbers, et cetera. So the committee recommended council approve the emergency response plan as changed, and I would move council accept this recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayo, second by Hackett, that we approve of the emergency response plan. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Chuck Whitman,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
and Jillian Peterson. 10 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thanks, Paul. Next, we have a crop agreement. Justin, this is your...
Yep, thank you, Mayor. This crop agreement is by our airport. This one is much like the crop agreement by the industrial park, where it's basically just grassland. We rent it out to an individual, and they pay us for the land. I'm not sure if you recall with the industrial park agreement, that was actually $60 an acre for the grassland. We agreed on 55 acres, or $55 an acre for this one, just because the industrial park actually had the farmable acreage. This is the total acreage, so this is over there by the airport in between Fleet Farm. There are some wetlands, there are some mountains that can't be farmed, so that was the give and take of it. So it's a 5-year agreement, something we just like to renew with Mrs. Kathy Nickel. Just would bring in a little bit more money and payment twice a year on July and at the end of the year. So With that, I would just like the council to recommend approving the 5-year lease.
Okay, you've heard Justin's presentation. What would you like to do here?
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Dave Peterson, that we enter into another 5-year agreement with land lease with Kathy Nickel for an amount of $55 per acre, which would be $715 per year for a crop agreement. Any discussion?
Mayor, you need to correct the first line. It's not Vince anymore, it's Kathy.
Well, I thought I said Kathy, but.
There's another spot down where it says Mr. It should be Vince.
Oh, okay.
But it's just this is a renewal, and it was Vince, her husband, before, and I don't think that
Yeah,
got
he'd have a
corrected
hard
on
time
this
signing
renewal.
that,
That should get straightened out.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
Jillian Peterson. Paul Mayo.
Aye.
Chuck Whitman.
Aye.
Steve Hackett.
Aye.
And Alan Keeland.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, next we have discussion on the demolition of a home on 518 Granite Street. Henry's been working very hard to come to a conclusion here, so.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. The action pending before you is a culmination of about 4 years of work and angst to try to deal with this property. I think when you all read this, you probably know in each of your own areas another home like this. And I think that's the bigger question here is I would love to work on the future of trying to come up maybe with a plan of action and some kind of funding mechanisms, because this is just sort of a one and done kind of proposal. But you've got a little background. I put a map in the packet. And basically, the key things to know on the property is it's not of low value. We've had a lot of issues. We've had to clean up property. There's liens, there's special charges against the property. We've mowed it umpteen times. There was a collapsed retaining wall, and it was laying in the sidewalk, and we got rid of that. It's just been a lot of property maintenance. Working with the county, the back taxes are about $8,400 without interest, and so it's much more than that. And I did reach out to them on the side and asked if, and I put an offer out there if they would accept something less than what the back taxes were, and I kind of had a tentative budget to work within. And they did agree to accept 1/3 of the back taxes, which is about $2,800. We would have to get an asbestos inspection, and then any asbestos would have to be removed before demolition. We got a couple quotes to demolish it. Not so bad, $4,000 to get it down. And then I'm proposing about a $1,500 contingency. So we're looking at about $11,300 to deal with this. In talking with Chris Pethick, and most of you've met her, she's with CAP Services. She manages our housing rehab program. We've gotten some housing rehab grants, and we do get some income from those funds. And we've got a balance that's still available for housing rehab, but there's this $7,800 that could be used towards this demolition, and it is an allowable use. And then finally, in speaking with Kathy, we do have a small balance in the capital projects fund that she felt that the $3,500 being proposed would not be too burdensome. Again, this is an estimate, so I would expect us to come in less than the $11,300. Now, today, Miss Joyce Boyer came in, and you have a letter on your desk from her. At this point in time, I'm asking just for authority to get the building down and deal with that, and then over the coming months come up with some reuse suggestions. They run the gamut. Adjoining property owners, I have written them, and I need to follow up with them to see if there's some interest. Unfortunately, the one right immediately adjacent, 522 Granite, is in foreclosure itself. So there's really no opportunity there, at least at this point. One idea would be expand the Boyer Park. Another would be to construct, maybe a community garden in that, on the plot. Or some initial discussions, and they're not very far along, of maybe getting a new home built on the property, either through working with the school district or potentially CAP services. But again, that's far from being worked out. So the recommendation would be to authorize staff to proceed with taking it down for a cost of $11,270, and then direct us to come up with some options for you to consider later for the reuse. And then my final thing is, if there's some consensus, we're going to be doing some capital planning in the spring and summer, that maybe we talk about a more formalized demolition program, because I think there's probably a need for it. I don't know if you have any questions.
Do you have any questions on this? This is if you haven't been by that property, it's been much needed for a long time, and we've had a very difficult time trying to get to who the owners even were, and I commend Henry on working through this to get to the point we're at. Obviously, this is going to be a little extra burden on the city at this time, because we'll have to maintain that property until we decide what to do with it. But I think in the long run, it's a good project that we can do there. Steve, go ahead.
Henry, what you're saying then really is that to have this project done, it's really going to cost the city about $3,470?
Yeah. Well, we've got these housing rehab funds that, could be, the $7,800 could be put back out to do a house, but it's just that requested to divert it to this.
But you're right. This is tax. 3,000, about 3,500 of that is taxpayer money. You're right.
And I do expect it to be a little less than that, 11,300.
I'll make a motion, we go ahead and do this, demolish and take care of that land.
I'll second it.
Motion by Hackett, second by Hagan, that we approve of the demolition of this property at 518 Granite Street using $7,800 from the CDBG Housing Rehab Fund, and then $3,470 just from our fund balance, the Capital Projects Fund. Any discussion?
Henry,
Yes.
could you add Habitat for Humanity to some of your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's very good, Lori. They don't have a real active chapter in Waupaca, so it might be a challenge, but no, we talked about that. I think if the situation with the school could bear some fruit, that maybe we don't have to have quote-unquote habitat, but to kind of follow their model where you get like the building supply people to donate some funds, and maybe find a way to raise some dollars to help out. With CAP, they have a good working relationship with Humanity and Stevens Point, so they kind of know the program. So yes, I think that's a great idea, and I think I would lean on CAP a lot to maybe help formulate what that looks like.
Sounds good.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Henry, looking at Mrs. Boyer's letter here, has she been made aware that there might be other alternatives? It sounds like they think it's going to be a park expanded.
Well, actually, she called me, and we changed phone calls. I didn't talk in person, but I left a message, let her know that this was on the agenda for this week. So that's why I'm sure you got the letter. And I did explain that the staff recommendation was to look at options, so she's fully aware.
Okay.
And I also talked to her today, Scott, when she dropped off the letter, and she is aware of these other options.
Okay.
Absolutely. Anybody else, any comments? Yes, sir.
This maybe isn't real important, but I'm looking at this map, and it looks like the property line is going right through the house of 522 Granite Street. If we take over this property, are we going to own that house too?
Well, we know that our mapping is not precise right down to the inch. But I think this occurs a lot with platting from back in the old days that are sort of remnants that we have to deal with. I don't know, Brennan, you got a thought on that?
I would agree with you. I mean, you know, the GIS is only so accurate, but usually it's within, you know, a considerable area. I'll have Rhonda take a look at, see whether or not we have any existing surveys out there. Highly doubtful. We may have to do a lot line adjustment in the future depending on what the plans are going to be down the road.
Well, if it's smaller, Henry, I think you should go back to the county and ask them for it. We'll pay them even more.
Well, you know, there's no county. But, I probably should have asked for 0 now, you know, because they worked with us so well. But I'll know next time. We'll approach them.
All right. Anything else? Sandy will call the roll.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Chuck Whitman,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Jillian Peterson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
and Paul Hagan.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, next then we have license report number 1307. This is a request for this is not a new request, right, Henry?
Yeah, it's a transfer.
Okay. So they're looking for a Class B intoxicating liquor and license and Class B fermented malt beverage license be transferred into the name of Group 1 Wisconsin LLC, doing business as Reflections Bar and Grill. And I guess the agent is Deb Underberg for that. And then they're also requesting a Class A beer and intoxicating liquor license. And that's actually to sell beer and liquor. So, Henry, you have explanation?
Well, actually, I misspoke, Mayor. The one with the Holiday is a transfer. They sold and they're transferring the business. The first one with Ms. Underberg representing is a new license. I apologize.
Okay, so which one is the new license, the Class A one?
No. The first one for Group 1 Wisconsin LLC. Doing business as Reflections Bar and Grill, 110 Grand Seasons Drive. They were done both on the same license report. Maybe that's a little confusing, but that's how it was presented.
I'm still confused, so explain to me again, Henry, what's
Okay.
going on?
What's happening with the Grand Seasons, and I still call it the Grand Seasons, I apologize to the representatives here. There was a license with the Mexican restaurant, and they were doing the catering and basically doing all that
And they had a
for
beer
the hotel.
they had a
Yes.
beer and a liquor license.
Right.
Okay.
And what's occurring now is the Group 1 Wisconsin LLC, they want to now proceed forward, and if there's specific questions on the operations, they could ask, but they want to get back and handle their own catering.
Okay, so that is a transfer of a license from, what was the name of the? DeFuegos. So it's being transferred from DeFuegos, which is not going to be there anymore, to this Group 1.
Right.
So
So
that
it's
is
not
a
an
transfer.
additional license, and I don't know, have all the background on those discussions with De Fuego or what's working out there.
Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
Since my office does handle getting the licenses, this is correct, De Fuego's surrendering their license to Group 1. So there isn't a new license. All there is a new application. There is no fee for the liquor license to Group 1. It's just a new agent that they're putting on. So that's all they have to do.
Okay. So when they apply for the new fiscal year, then that's when they would.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Mayor?
Yes.
Right.
Chief Golk tomorrow is going to be meeting with the people from the Ramada to do their inspection, and that is going to be done at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay. So we can make this pending the chief's approval, which it says on here anyways.
Correct, and that'll be done tomorrow morning.
Okay. Awesome. All right, and then, anybody have any questions on that? Do you want to, any comments, Dave or Deb?
No,
Okay.
just, originally it was at the hotel and the Fuegos had taken it, and now we're just
Okay.
basically that.
Okay. Awesome. All right, let's go to the Class A beer and intoxicating liquor license. Now, this is for the Holiday gas station, is that?
Yeah, they were purchased by
Okay.
this outfit.
So this is a transfer also?
The gentleman is in the back.
Okay, but this is a transfer, right? Okay, all right. So,
Our question I represent CAPS.
can you step up to the podium for us? Thank you. I should be better at that. We have this televised and we want to make sure we can hear you.
Okay. I'm Randy Smith. I represent SSG Holiday, and I also do CAPS. It's they're out of San Antonio, Texas. We want the transfer, obviously, to go to them. Our only concern is, if you vote it through tonight, SSG is not giving up the rights to sell alcohol till the closing of it's going to be March 29th, technically, unless something does happen, it doesn't go through. But if you transfer it tonight, then we don't want to give up our rights to sell alcohol at the Holiday or the Northland Liquor Holiday Station until the sale is 100% complete and signed off.
So we can make this approval based on the sale going through and that date, right? I mean, we can delay this, John?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the permit wouldn't be issued until we
Yeah,
Yeah, we just didn't want to relinquish it because that's what you're really saying, where it's doing, we don't want to relinquish it because we're not. We want to still operate because obviously CAPS doesn't want to lose the business either by having to shut it down for that month.
Sure.
Technically, it looks like March 29th, the sale will finalize and go through, but we have 31 communities to do this in, so we want to make sure that everyone goes through. That's all we care.
Okay.
All right? Thank
Everybody
you.
understand that? Okay. So we have two items on here for this license report, 1307. We would need a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Hagan, second by Jillian Peterson, that we approve of license report number 1307. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Thanks. Good luck, both of you there. Okay, let's go on to license report number 1308. These are the regular operator's license, bartender's license. You have 3 on there. As far as we know, these are all pending background checks and so on and so forth. Again, we'd be looking for approval of this report.
So move.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Dave Peterson, second by Hackett, that we approve of license report number 1308. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Let's see, we're back to Justin here. This is to do with the City Hall Library renovation project, the phase 1 part of it.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the whole City Hall library renovation project As you guys are all aware, we've set aside $160,000 for the project. Basically, as we've been working on it, trying to get the numbers narrowed down to it, we're basically suggesting to break it down into 3 phases, and we'll bring them forward to you as they're ready. So this is just the first phase, which is just the painting, which comes to about $25,000. The next 2 phases are divided up into the carpeting and then the HVAC system and security. So with the painting, basically Russ Montgomery's been spearheading the quotes and receiving everything, working with the contractors, and we got 3 very good quotes, and as you can see from the list there, all very close. And attached is a breakdown, if you're curious, of, I guess, where the paint is going and how it's going to be divvied up. And then finally is the official proposal from Christensen Home Decorators, Steve Christensen. So with all that, if there is no questions, I'd like to have council move forward with approving Christensen's Home Decorators and a phase 1 of the City Hall Library renovation painting.
Okay. You guys see the quotes and you see the recommendation that's coming from Justin on this. I was amazed at how close the quotes were. That was crazy. But it must be pretty close on their hourly rates, I would guess.
Well, actually, I think there was some questions early on. There was a few numbers that were a little questionable, so Russ kind of tracked the guys down and then kind of worked with them again to get these things shored up and make sure everybody's on the same page. So,
okay, awesome.
I would move for approval.
Motion by Mayo, second by Olson, that we approve of the agreement for the phase 1, which is the painting project of City Hall, to Christensen's Home Decorating at an amount not to exceed $25,875. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
Jillian Peterson. Eric Olson. Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
Paul Hagan. Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Chuck Whitman.
Aye.
And Paul Mayo.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
All right, next we're under issues, projects, discussions. The first one is dealing with Swan Park. Aaron, you want to set us up here?
Sure. All right, I'm going to throw it up on the projector. It'll be a little easier to follow along this way, I believe. All right. We also have John Kinnear here, who we worked with through Rettler Corporation. John's also a member of our park board, so it worked out kind of well. All right, before we get into the actual plan and some of the cost estimates, I want to take you through a quick introduction of the process. I've probably said it before, but just as a reminder, I'll set it up for you here. The reason we went through this process is because we've been fortunate enough in the last 4 to 5 years to get really tens of thousands of dollars that has been donated towards Swan Park, mainly through softball associations and youth baseball associations. What we wanted to do, we didn't anticipate this trend continuing quite as it has. And now that it is, we wanted to make sure that we put a plan together so we weren't moving things or doing things in spite of what we did maybe 2 years earlier. Also, we wanted to make sure that some of the things that the boards wanted to do were within lines of what we could feasibly maintain, what we could do within our operating budget. And I think we accomplished both of those things. So the people that were involved in the process were representatives from the Waupaca Youth Baseball Association, Waupaca Youth Softball Association, men's softball representatives. We also had 2 park board representatives, if you don't include John, 3 with John. And then we also had John with Rettler, and then park staff to give suggestions on what we thought were maybe the highest needs within the park. Some of the projects, I'm going to take you through kind of the projects in 3 separate phases. And the first phase is the projects that are going to be completed this year or we're getting quotes for. And the projects that will be completed this year are within a scope of about $40,000. We've had a commitment of about $30,000 from the Youth Baseball Association. They said that they are willing to spend up to that much money to complete some projects that they want to do. And then anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000 is what the girls' board has said that they've wanted to put into the park. Not only have we really been fortunate enough to have this facility to bring in multiple tournaments, multiple different communities and people from all over this part of the state on numerous weekends. But we've also had the good fortune where the money that is made in these tournaments over the past few years has gone right back into the facility, which keeps the teams coming back. So we hope to continue with that trend. The first projects that we are completing this year or have been done or we're working on doing, number one is field improvement, and that's not really shown on this plan, but the playing surface is always probably the most important thing that we want to make sure we're taking care of. We had a number of rainouts this past year where the infields maybe didn't take as much rain as we thought maybe they should have. With the amount of games that are played on each field, we have about 140 some games played on each of those fields, and that doesn't count some of the large tournaments. So you can imagine the wear and tear that we get, the amount of maintenance that those ball diamonds require in order to keep drainage right and everything that goes along with that. We did work with Falks Brothers on adding a conditioner to fields 1, 2, and 3. We did not do it to field 4 because field 4 actually has been very good at holding water. If we have rainout issues with fields 1 through 3, we typically don't with field 4. So we left that the way it is. We said if it's not broke, let's not fix it. And we, oddly enough, got tested. We were able to get it in place this fall, and it rained a bunch in early December. So we kind of got a test in early winter, late fall, and actually with that new conditioner, there we saw a lot of improvement, and we think that that'll be great for us this summer as we run our leagues and our tournaments. We also are looking at doing some bullpens, and this is a suggestion of the boys baseball board. You'll see bullpens. Let's see if I can get this laser pointer working here. There we go. You'll see bullpens down the right and left field lines on almost all occasions, except for left field on field 4, which is right here. The reason for that is because we have 3 batting cages here the way it is. This batting cage gets used more for pitching practice anyway, so we thought let's keep it closer to the dugout and create kind of an opening in the fence, and they can use it right there, and rather than put something in this green space, which which is used for warm up and things like that.
I gotta use this. So I'll get Aaron's pen. It's when you stand.
So what those batting cages will include, right away, they're not going to be full-blown batting cages. We're not going to have fence around them and things like that. What we're going to do is we are going to take the soft toss stations, which were an improvement a couple years ago. We're going to move them, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid in the future, to be the backstops of these bullpens. And then we're going to have a turf area at the home plate area and then the pitching mound. So that's what they're going to start out as, and then if we see a need for more, we can always build on it. We also are working on, actually we just purchased batting cage nets. The batting cage nets for the original 3 batting cages right here, they're the original nets, and they have worn a lot, although they're about 10 years or more old as well. So maintenance that we would typically have to cover, the girls softball board has agreed to purchase those, and those are about $1,300 a piece, and we got 3 of them, so we'll be putting those up. Staining, the girls softball board right now is looking at staining underneath the current shelter right now. They're getting some prices for that. The wood decking underneath the concession stand needs to be done. It's in pretty rough shape, and they are getting quotes for that as we talk. We do have a meeting in a couple weeks, and they'll vote on what to do there. The boys' baseball board also is looking at moving scoreboards possibly. Right now we have scoreboards about halfway down some of these lines, here, and here. They're looking at moving them more in the outfield. A lot of parks that you see that are set up similarly do have them in strategic spots towards left center or right center field, depending on kind of where the line of view from the concession stand is. Two things that'll help with is some of the tournament directors, when you're trying to run a tournament and you're trying to see what's going on, trying to stay on schedule, it's kind of important to know what inning each game is in. If rules need to be communicated in between innings, if umpires need stuff in between innings, they can do it from one spot. The other benefit from our department is we run flag football out here. Actually, I think you can kind of even see some of the lines that were painted on the fields. Right now we can't use those scoreboards for our flag football games or tournaments because of where they're located. You cannot see them. If they're in the outfield in left center or right center, we could use them for that, which we can't currently do. That's not something that they're 100% positive on. They're waiting back from a quote from Tim Bauer, and they're going to decide on that as well. But it's something they're looking into. Next, I want to talk a little bit about future projects that will be fundraised for. There's no plan right now to do these in the near future, meaning the next year or two. But these are maybe a little more expensive projects in which we have seen a need for, either from comments from some of our residents that use the park often, people that have come to tournaments, so on and so forth. And number one is shade structures and safety. So a couple years ago, we were able to raise the backstops on each of the fields about 10 feet. It has done a great job in catching a number of foul balls, but obviously doesn't eliminate all of them. So two things we wanted to do, things we looked into was a netting system over this whole area. There was some downfalls to that, being aesthetically, maintenance purposes. Those nets are expensive, they need to be replaced, so on and so forth. So what we try to do is kind of knock out two needs in one or two projects, and that is roof extensions on the current building the way it is, and they'd extend out to field 1, field 2, and field 3. That would help with shade when we have those 90-degree days during the tournaments. That is one complaint about Swan Park that we get, is there's not a ton of shaded area, especially when we have over 1,000 people there at a time. Hard to cram everybody in. Also, when we have a rain event or something like that, it's nice to have some more shelter. And then it will help with foul balls and such. The more cover, the better we'll be there. Another thing that will address the same concerns is roofs over the bleachers. There's some of these smaller ones right here. There's a bleacher set here, here, and here. And that will do the same thing. It'll provide shade. It'll help when a foul ball comes from field 3 here over to field 2. These guys are not paying attention whatsoever. They're watching the game over here, and it won't, it'll hopefully mitigate that risk, I guess. Some other things we've looked at, and this is another expensive one, field 4 lighting. It's something we've talked about a long time, and we have a cost estimate of well over $100,000. Boards in the past have thought, well, is it worth raising money for X amount of years to gain 16 to 20 games a season? And they've kind of pushed that off in the past, but it's been talked about a lot, and it would help in a bunch of scheduling circumstances if they were added. So we wanted to make sure that it stayed on at least the plan. Andrew, our recreation coordinator right now, is applying for a grant through the MLB Foundation. I'm sure it's a competitive grant, but you do not know what your chances are unless you apply. So he's been working hard on that. And then we could have some matching funds to go along with some of these donors, which would be fantastic. The next phase I'll get to is just some other park projects, and these are things that maybe like baseball and softball wouldn't necessarily donate to, because maybe it doesn't have to really directly do with their associations. But we thought it'd be good to put them in just for general park purposes. We obviously have the sledding hill out here now. One of the things we've heard is a warming house, the need for some sort of warming house maybe sometime in the future. That's a little bigger ticket item. And who knows, I'm not saying the boards wouldn't donate towards something like that, but I know that their priorities mainly lie within here at this point. We also have a park storage building with all these extra things going on, and all of the stuff that we house for these associations. Storage is a problem. We have storage here, storage off the back of the concessions, but it's amazing how much really you need when you have baseball equipment, softball equipment, Polaris Rangers, tractors, so on and so forth. That all takes up room, and so we placed kind of just a site right up here. We also have a price in there for, I couldn't look at this picture, this overhead picture anymore, and not notice all the cracks and tarring in the parking lots and driveways. So we did get a price for seal coating, probably be a capital project down the road at some point. You'll also see some entryways right here to from each of the parking lots. And the idea behind this is if at some point we ever have boards that maybe are not as active as they are now, if they decided to put their money into something else, we could possibly have these entryways with a local business in the entryway, or put their names as advertising in here, and we could sell that for a 5-year period or a 10-year period for X amount of money, and that would be a way to bring in funds. So that's a future thing, and the way things are going, we're not as concerned about that now, but it's an idea as we move forward. I also, things you won't see on here are some of the smaller projects. What I did is I asked John to put together some things like the nets that I mentioned before, some routine maintenance work on the ball fields, redoing the flooring in the bathrooms, some smaller projects where if they don't want to fundraise towards $40,000, because most of the volunteers that are working on these projects have their kid in it or kids in it for only the next 5 or 6 years, and they say, well, why not spend the money now where our children get the benefit, which makes perfect sense to me. So maybe they want to do some things where they see more immediate results, and John put a list of that together, and you'll see that on page 205 in your packets. And actually we've had them kind of jump on a couple of those already, so I think that was a good thing to include as well. One more benefit that I do want to outline of this project was, it's always good to get the input from all the people involved, all the user groups. It's important. They use it. They're out there just as much or more than we are, and they really do understand the needs of the project. But we actually already have had a group that's interested in donating money towards a community project within the parks that we're giving a presentation to this month. So it's great to have a plan like this to say, hey, there's been some thought into it. These are the needs within Swan Park. We will have some things that we'll present within other parks, but when they can see something like this, I have to believe they're more apt to put some money and effort into those places. So that's kind of where we're at now. I'm not going to get into detail about some of the costs. I know we're sitting over about $900,000, a little over, for all of the costs. Like I said, not all of this is going to be done in a year. Not all of it's going to be done in 3 years, but it's kind of a roadmap of where we can kind of chip away at. So with that, does anyone have any questions for myself or John?
Aaron, the one thing you mentioned, a warming house. I know you tried experimenting with making an ice skating rink out there.
Yep.
Or you now play t-ball, or not t-ball, something like football t-ball.
Yeah, yeah.
Any update on that?
Yeah, Josh, we actually did try to flood an area. Let's see if I can point at it again. Right in this region right here, this is the t-ball area that we've graded off, and Josh tried to just plow some snow banks, hold some water in here. Unfortunately, it didn't really work. We're going to need probably some sort of boards that he'll have to build as it's just a cheap way to hold in the water. But it is still in the plans. It's going to be helpful when we get our cemetery / parks crew person for a little more resources to maintain something like that. But yeah, that is something we're looking at, and it looks like the cost to implement something like that will be covered under that BRM money that we have left. Any other questions?
Good. Thanks, Aaron. John, thank you. Ambitious. All right, let's move on to the second item then. This is dealing with our streetlights. Justin.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Jensen's a pretty tough act to follow, but I'll try. As you all know, I started in September, right in the middle of budget season, and basically the street lights kind of came up as a big dollar number in our budgets. It accounts for about 10% of our total public works budget, and as you can see, is greater than our City Hall Library maintenance budget. It's greater than our street machine and equipment budget, and is very similar to our snow and control and removal. So basically, with the encouragement of Roger Hansen, kind of started looking at this, seeing how we can improve this, and started talks with WPS representative saying that yes, our bill is pretty high. He thought it was comparable to Wausau. So we started kind of looking into other cities and towns' policies. Found out that we do in fact have a street light policy, which I have included. Well, excuse me, my memo's on page 207. The existing policy, which was adopted back in '99, is on page 209. And then behind that is something that I've created to try and implement. So moving forward, I guess the policies, including the one we have in other cities similar to us and even larger to us, all have very kind of similar criteria, which is basically street light at every intersection, additional lights in preferred areas such as downtown or parks, and that street or city lights are not just for basically safety on roadways for traffic and pedestrians, but not for private security, which is, I think, where our street lights have gone. We have put up a number of them based on the public comments, and additional lights have been put up for private security. However, you know, there is some give and take. So just kind of going through with all this, and we got a list from our WPS representative of all the lights that are basically WPS lights that we pay for, which is close to 600. Went through the whole list, and based on the criteria of a light at every intersection and a certain spacing, have found out that there's about 71 street lights that we think could possibly be removed or are unnecessary. So what we'd like to try and do is kind of follow through with some of this. And I'm bringing this up to you because I know it could be a touchy subject, especially in the public's eyes. You remove street lights, they think it's unsafe. However, the policy that I've created kind of addresses that, having a light at every intersection, putting a standard footage in between lights where there is not an intersection, and just trying to develop something so we can control our budget. And if we expand, we develop new areas, we have further control, we got more standardization across the entire city. And the other part of it is looking into the LEDs. So if we do move forward with this and try to control, I guess, our energy budget or energy costs, and we do remove some lights, we would look to upgrade to LEDs. So most of the lights we have now are these sodium lights, and if you are looking at the packet, and further on page 212 is two pictures that show examples of the difference between the sodiums and the LEDs. And basically the LEDs kind of broadcast a more even light, and they say give better color rendering, which means that a red shirt actually looks red. It doesn't look like pale yellow, which can improve the vision, can improve your sight, and there's less glare. So if we do move forward with this, that would be one of the things that if we did remove a light that we saw that didn't fit within the criteria, we'd try to upgrade the ones adjacent to it to LEDs to try and, I guess, ease the public outcry or what they would see as a foul. And then with the savings, we would like to do as well as buy LEDs for our lights, which are the ones along Fulton Street and ones within parks. So I guess the whole thing, we have a pretty good cost here. I'm looking to try and control it. I would like you guys to look at this policy that I developed on page 210 and into 211. It's pretty in-depth. It's a little bit more expansive than the current policy, but what I would like to do eventually is replace our current policy with this new one. Not tonight, unless you guys are all for it, then we can make a motion for it, but just bringing it to you, something to discuss and think about for the near future. And all I'm looking for from council tonight is just some comments, questions, so I should know if I should push this a little harder or if I should just let it go. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I've been wanting to investigate LED lights for quite some time, and as you might have noticed, I asked you, and I said, hey, there is one. So I mean, it is a fantastic, fantastically better than what we currently have, and I assume they save energy also.
Yeah, that's correct. The energy savings I haven't really looked into. As far as the WPS lights go, we pay basically a monthly charge based on the type and the size. There's not actually metered on the WPS lights. So the savings on the WPS side are really not that great. It's like $1.50 per light. We would see a lot of energy savings though on the lights that we own that are individually metered. What those actually are, I haven't looked into yet, but they're there. I've heard upwards of 50%. So,
do you have a list of what lights you would be recommending to remove?
Yes, I do.
And where is that list?
In my folder here. I can kind of develop something a little bit more, showing the locations, describing the locations. And the way I was anticipating approaching this was not just to do a wholesale change overnight and rip all these lights out right away. It would be more of a progressive approach. So we'd take a light or two out. You know, we'd have to work with WPS because we'd have to order the removals and the upgrades to LEDs. If we ask for a lot of LEDs to be upgraded, then they're going to charge us. So if we kind of do a progressive approach, we can take a light out here and there, do an upgrade next to it, and just kind of work with them to slowly get this thing rolling. Plus, I also see that, like, I anticipate some public people kind of saying, hey, what'd you do with our lights? So trying to take it slowly but surely, I think, would be a better approach.
Justin, would that approach mean that you just turn the lights off at first? Or would you take them out?
We would probably most likely just remove them. You can't really flip them on and off unless they...
Sure you can. I'm not a very good aim, but there are some people that... Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, I guess my real question was, is there any savings by just turning those lights off, removing the light bulb for a period of time, and then seeing what the reaction is? And
Well, savings, dollar-wise, no. Most of the lights are WPS lights, so we just get charged monthly based on the type of light. That's it. The lights that we own, which are Fulton, mostly on Fulton Street, they're individually metered, so when they do burn out, we don't pay for that energy. So we could go around to our lights and experiment, but that's mostly just on Fulton Street. Most of the lights that we're looking at to remove are like the residential areas off of the main roadways. As far as unscrewing them, we could see what WPS would say about that. They might be in favor of it, but that is quite a bit of extra work for them, or unusual work for them, so. But I'll have to talk to them.
Okay. Are we interested in that list, you guys, what his recommendations are, or?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see the list.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask that question. Good job, Paul.
You set that up somehow, like in an email type thing to us, Justin?
Yeah, if you guys prefer it by email, I can do that.
Well, I don't care how you do it. I mean, I just thought it'd be easier for you to just send it out via email.
Okay. I will do that.
Anybody else have any questions on it? If you want an example of the LED lights, Paul, there's, Lake Street, is it? Did you say there's one?
Yeah, there, it's on Lake Street.
Okay, there's one on Lake Street, and then there's also actually one out by, in Foxfire Drive too, I saw. So I don't know if anybody else has seen them either, but if you really want to see the difference between
It's far superior.
yeah, it's unbelievable, the difference. So, okay, so we can't really make a motion tonight because we didn't have it on the agenda that way, but, I think, we're all okay with, looking to save money.
Okay.
Right, so let's take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to 2015 year in review. Henry.
Henry's got 2 minutes.
You know, we go multiple meetings without using this part of the agenda, and then you've got 3 staff people
It
that
says
want to
30-minute maximum right here.
And I will be longer than Justin, but shorter than Aaron in time. In all seriousness, this was put together sort of as a response to annually you get reports from the library and the police, and those are very good. They're very technically based, lots of data. And one of the ideas I had for my work plan this past year was to develop this and, you know, track some things and present a year in review. Hopefully there's some value here in looking back a little bit and maybe you know, pat ourselves on our back because we've had a lot of good accomplishments through the year. And the way I broke this down was I just looked at the departments that, you know, kind of are direct reports to me, so you can see those. The other category are things that sort of fell, you know, kind of off to the side that didn't fit neatly in there. So that's what I'm going to look at. I'd like to start with just our mission statement, okay? You see it on the agenda all the time. It's on our website. And in theory, it should guide all our decisions, you know. It's to lead creatively, plan wisely, and spend prudently. And I think every day, all of us in this room, and right on down from the council to all our line employees, we get up every morning with the idea that we want to do the best job we can to serve our public. But if you dig deeper, I think we all want to make our community the best it can be. And we do that a little bit at a time. So I can go through there. Aaron, they're all rec pictures pretty much. Looks like the bottom middle might be your park and rec committee going through some strategic planning. I do have a street truck in there. But the idea was to you know, look at quality of life, kind of try to capture a couple images and sort of the things we do. All right, budget and finance. I have passed out the document. You can kind of follow along. You know, for brevity, I'm not going to read them all, but I think, you know, some of the key things is in the budget and finance area is we did implement some new financial management software. And we are putting some new accounting procedures in place, and we have addressed some issues with our audit in terms of, having proper internal controls, and we're continually working on that. So those are some positive things in that area. In the area of human resources, we updated our job descriptions across the city. We had some new hires, as you can see there. And we did bid out our health insurance this year. And because of our plan year, if you remember, we used to be on October 1. And with the American Affordable Care Act, there was a reason to go to the 15-month plan year, and it actually is going to result in some savings for us. And we do have a new carrier after maybe 3 years with We a Trust. We are now with the Counties Association Group Health and Trust. I got to get caught up. Human resources. Here we go. Economic community development. We are just completed our first full year of our strategic plan implementation. We've had a number of large projects that are worth noting. The Presto Products project, they have purchased the building, of course, and are looking to start production in the fourth quarter of this year. Bethany Home expansion's underway. Marvin Metals, Gusmer Enterprises, Sunny Day expansions, all really nice projects. I think you've heard Kathy report in our budget process that we had a very meager tax base increase for this budget, current budget. We're anticipating a pretty nice increase, which should help us with budgeting next year to our tax base. We did complete a couple of TIF agreements where we did the cash grants back. Centerline Machine, total subsidy was paid back, and then Gusmer Enterprises was paid back, and you can see the dollar amounts. We still have a couple of those that are active, the DaVita Dialysis, Spirit Industries, and Schmidt Boat Docks and Lift. And then, of course, we spent a lot of time today on the Main Street Reconstruction Project, really exciting project. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting work ahead on that. And then some code compliance updates. Alan mentioned community media. This year, in 2015, we celebrated our 30th anniversary of Win TV. Okay, that was sort of state-of-the-art community media. Not so much now. We've got a pretty active web presence, and I think our radio has just only begun to show value. And again, we created the low power FM station with all outside money. And then Waupaca Online, our finances are getting stabilized because of that AT&T penalty that we had paid off. So a lot more predictability on the budget and finance side for the Waupaca Online. Parks and Recreation, wow, what a list. You can read them here. I'm not sure which ones Aaron would want me to talk about, but South Park, we did a lot there this past year. We are, working on the Eco Park project out on the East Gateway. As you know, we had some challenges with it on the Oz Property Committee. It got moved, and in hindsight, maybe that was a good chain of events, because the Eco Park could really serve as a good catalyst for that East Gateway subdivision to have essentially a park right adjacent. When Swan Park was constructed, right, it was just an old farm, and the developments that built up, the subdivisions that built up around there, because the park was there. So these public improvements can generate some private investment. And of course the Sled Hill, which we didn't have the best winter this winter to use it, but that's a great asset, and I'm sure Aaron's got tons of compliments. We redid the floor in the Augie Austin gym, and then the Serenity Gardens down behind the rec center were constructed. Public Works, streets, we did complete the resurfacing on Hillcrest Drive and Fulton Street, and we did do a street excavation ordinance update. Water, we're implementing new meter reader programs, and We're in the process of renewal our 5-year well testing and registration. I'm happy to report that we're down to just one person, one family, one homeowner that hasn't complied. Justin, nice job in bird dogging that and getting that through. Sewer, we did complete a 20-year sewer use agreement with the chain. That was a significant process. We actually have some really some tight costs that we're tracking and which the chain will be helping us with in a really, I think, a really nice agreement. And that was a huge accomplishment. We implemented an amalgam separation program, again, targeted toward our dentist. And in the facilities area, again, this probably isn't the most sexy thing, but we probably doesn't fall under facility, but since Russ is a forester, through his training, we did put together an emerald ash borer plan, which we're probably less than a decade away from being inhabited by the emerald ash borer. And Russ did go through some significant facilities training, which I think was very good. Some other accomplishments, we did get a snow plowing protocol or policy in place at the airport. We negotiated a first-time agreement for room tax distribution with the chamber. It looks like the legislature session is closed, so some of the changes they were looking to that law are going to happen. So we will be functioning under that room tax agreement. We purchased a couple vehicles for transit, and looking back, we didn't have the most, I don't want to say productive, most active year with ordinances, but we did pass 12 ordinances. They dealt with rezonings, parking, and then fireworks display. I'd like to finish up with sort of planning in your mind some things going forward. And again, I kind of broke it down into area departments, but we're going to continue in the finance and budgeting area to, improve those reporting and documents going forward. We want to get going on a CIP, capital improvement plan, and be working with Kathy to get a schedule together and kind of work with you to find a schedule that's convenient to you. The council wants to see some water and sewer financial policies, and we'll bring those forward. And then, of course, the TIF analysis, you all received that last meeting. I think there's some really great opportunities as a result of that, and we'll continue to work with that. And then, of course, we've got this issue of outstanding special assessments that with our infrastructure projects that we'll continue to work on. In the human resource area, we want to work on developing a performance evaluation tool. And then we want to work on some handbook updates. We had an issue recently with our light duty policy, and we need to look at that. Among other things, we need to talk about probationary pay, because that issue came up. And then sick leave accrual and use are just three that quickly came to mind. We're going to be reviewing that handbook and coming back with some suggestions on some changes. Economic community development, continue the 5-year strategic plan, and of course the downtown master plan will consume some time as well. In community media, we did, that's wrong, we were at 80 mags for bandwidth, and they just turned on the 150 just this last week. So that's going, and then just further development of our low power FM station. In Parks and Rec, a lot of things there, but Senior Center reaccreditations on there. We're going to be hosting the 2017 men's softball tournament, which is a great honor to do that. I know that's going to be a lot of work, Aaron. And then installation of Bowersox fishing pier, as well as some boat ramp improvements. Public Works, we're going to complete the second year of the capital plan for street repairs, and you heard just now Justin's presentation on street lighting, so we're going to continue to work on that. In the water area, we've got some looping projects. There is a water line rerouting that's going to need to occur as part of the Bethany home, and I know Justin and his staff are working on that. We're going to be working very hard to change out our meters. Last meeting you approved a limited part-time position to help with that. Some well rehabs. In the sewer area, we've got some an aeration blower upgrade and some other projects. So it's going to be a busy year going forward. I don't know if you have any questions of me? So I don't know, I didn't time myself, so was I between Justin and Aaron? Okay.
Can I say one thing, Henry?
Sure.
One just correction, and I know you had a huge list to go through, so it's understandable. But we are going to make a presentation to hopefully host the 2017 state men's softball field.
Okay.
So we're going to work to get awarded that.
All right.
So
Thanks.
Yep.
Well, because it's been mentioned, it's going to happen, right? All right. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, next, we have a planned closed session. We would need a motion to go into closed session to have discussion, and I'll read the whole thing once we have made that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
A motion by Hagan, second by Keelan, that we have a motion to go into closed session in accordance with 19.85, parent 1, parent G, the Wisconsin statutes as it pertains to conferring with legal counsel for the government body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Had to be written by an attorney. Any discussion? If not, Sandy will take a roll call.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
Chuck Whitman.
Aye.
Jillian Peterson. Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Paul Mayo.
Aye.
Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
And Dave Peterson. 10 ayes, motion carried. We're into closed session at what
All
time?
right, this is the last item of the council. We are going to go into open session, and there could be a motion that is made once we go back into open session. So for those of you that are watching us, you might want to look back in at a little later time. I'm not sure how long this is going to take, but we'll see.